Welcome to Hoffmann-Photography. My name is Rainer and I'm passionate about black and white photography. But there are some don'ts and some do's when it comes to converting your images to black and white. Here they are. Developing black and white film and making prints in the darkroom requires good craftsmanship and quite a bit of knowledge. And so does converting your digital images into black and white. So here are some tips of what not to do and what to do when you are converting your digital images into black and white. Let's start with the don'ts. The main reason why I don't recommend the black and white mode, or sometimes called monochrome mode, of your camera is that you have only very limited control over how colors are converted into gray values. Basically, you just have the choice of the classic photographic black and white filters, namely yellow, orange, red, and green. And that doesn't give you very much control. Actually, you don't choose filters, but you choose a simulation of these filters. Editing software, on the other hand, gives you much more control over how colors are converted into grayscales. More on that later. The second reason why I don't like the black and white mode of a camera is that most cameras will output 8-bit JPEG files, and I very much prefer working with 14 or 16-bit files. So that's the second reason. In this test image, we have all the primary colors: red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Now here's what happens when you just reduce the saturation. There you go. It's all gray now, and that's what color saturation does, actually. So I redo that. Now, of course, this is not a photograph. This is a test image that I generated just to show what happens when you reduce the saturation. So let's have a look at a real live photograph. Now this one has very saturated colors, and you guessed it, if I reduce the saturation, the resulting image is, well, no good. So let's undo that. But again, this is a very unusual photograph because it has very saturated colors. So let's look at a real live example. This one. Now this has all the primary colors, or not all the primary colors, but red, green, and blue, and highly saturated, but this is a real live photograph. So let's have a look what happens when we reduce the color saturation. There you go, and it's obvious that blue and green are almost the same gray value, and even the red is not very different from blue and green. And in the sky, all the detail is almost lost. So it's not a very good thing to do. So just reducing the color saturation usually doesn't result in a very good black and white image. So let's see what happens when we convert our image into grayscale mode. Okay, select gray 8-bit and convert. Much better than reducing the color saturation. Now we have different gray values for all the colors, and that's about what it looks like to our eye. Now, much better, but still not great. And let's have a look at this image again, and let's convert that to grayscale. well, not better than reducing the color saturation in this case. Green and blue are almost the same value, and red is way too dark in my opinion, and we don't have much detail in the sky. We certainly can do better than that. Okay, here is what you should do. The tool to use when converting your photos to black and white is the black and white tool. You probably guessed that. The default setting of the black and white tool, at least in this program, are actually a bit disappointing. There's no detail in the sky at all. Red and blue and green are almost identical gray values. But we can, of course, adjust our sliders so that we get an image that we like. Now, in this program, we've got all the primary colors: red, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and magenta. In other programs, there may be some more sliders than this, but basically this will be enough and this will do fine. Now, first of all, I want some more detail in the sky, so I will darken the blue values by just sliding the slider to the left. Ah, nice. Much better. And let's see, cyan. Ah, cyan. Look at this. What happens to the blue part of the image? Oh, we can darken the sky even more, I think. Now we can try to brighten up the red parts. Let's see, not too much. And let's see what we do about the grass. Let's believe that should be yellow. Yes. Now we can do it. Can make it brighter or we can make it darker. Really depends on what you like. Let's make it a bit darker in my. So now look at this image. It's very different from what we have seen before. This conversion was made from an 8-bit JPEG file, and you can see how blotchy the sky became. This is mainly due to the low color depth of just 8-bit. Now the next one, this one was made from a 16-bit Photoshop file, and well, it's much better, but it's far from good. So the best solution, in my opinion, is to work on the raw file itself, and now this is just perfect. However, the results can vary depending on which software you use. Here's one aspect of black and white photography that I would like to emphasize, and it's got nothing to do with do's and don'ts. Black and white photography is a total abstraction of reality. After all, reality is not black and white. And because it's an abstraction, you can do whatever you like. Here's an example. I mentioned that black and white is a total abstraction of reality. And here's an example what we can do to our images. Now, the default values again are not very good. We have blown out highlights, and I think those feathers are not dark enough for my personal liking. So let's do something about it. I'll darken the feathers a bit, maybe a bit more. And I have to do something about the blown out highlights. And let's see, reducing yellow doesn't really work. So I try red. Ah, very good. Yes. So this restores the highlights and the feathers. And let's have the blue feathers even a bit darker. And let's say perhaps we darken the green background a bit as well. Now, this is one interpretation of this image, but of course, you can do just the opposite. And let's do this. I'll brighten up the blue feathers, the wing feathers, make them really bright. And I darken the yellow feathers. Let's see, and let's have a somewhat brighter background. Now, this is completely different, but if you don't know the original color photograph, then this could be a correct representation. So we don't know really, and you are free to do whatever you like. I hope this helped, and thanks for watching.